What if I told you your biggest fear might not actually be irrational? Your fear of deep water, dogs, heights, being trapped, even talking to strangers. What if those fears didn't start where you think they did? What if they began in childhood, with one forgotten moment, one terrifying sound, one small incident your brain never let go of? And here's the disturbing part. Some phobias aren't created by what happened to you, but by what you watched happen to someone else. A scream, a warning, a parent's panic, a story told when you were 5. And just like that, your brain built a threat response that may still control you today. By the end of this video, you may understand why you fear what you fear, and you might even recognize the childhood event that created it. Because some phobias aren't random at all. They're memories wearing masks. Part 1. Your brain does not forget. Imagine this. You're 4 years old. A dog barks, lunges. Maybe it jumps on you. Maybe it only startled you. Maybe nothing serious even happened, but your body reacted. Heart racing, crying, panic. And in that moment, your brain made a connection. Dog equals danger. That's it. That's the seed. And years later, you say, I don't know why I'm scared of dogs. But your nervous system remembers, even when you don't. This is called fear conditioning, and it shapes more of your life than you realize. Because phobias often begin before you're old enough to understand what's happening. And that's where it gets disturbing. Because children absorb fear differently than adults. Adults analyze danger. Children imprint it. And imprinted fear can last decades. But what if nothing bad ever happened to you? What if no dog attacked you? No elevator trapped you? No water nearly drowned you? Then why are you afraid? That's where it gets stranger. Sometimes you borrowed someone else's fear. Part 2. You can inherit fear without genetics. Imagine a child watching their mother panic during turbulence, gripping the seat, hyperventilating, whispering, "We're going to crash." That child may develop a fear of flying without ever experiencing danger, because children learn threat by watching. Psychologists call this observational learning, but in plain English, you copied fear and didn't know it. Maybe your father was terrified of snakes, so every time he saw one, he reacted like death was near. You absorbed that. Maybe your mother constantly warned, don't go in deep water, don't trust strangers, don't use elevators, don't embarrass yourself. And slowly, caution became terror. Because repeated warnings in childhood can become phobias in adulthood. And here's what's worse. Sometimes parents pass down fears they don't even realize they have. An anxious parent can train an anxious child without saying a word. And the child grows up thinking, this is just who I am. No, that may be conditioning, not personality. But some phobias don't come from learned fear. They come from something darker, trauma. And trauma doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks small, but leaves scars anyway.
Part 3. Trauma creates big fears. People think trauma means extreme horror. Car crashes, violence, disasters, or anything huge. But childhood trauma can be subtle. Being locked in a closet as punishment, getting stuck in an elevator once, nearly choking at dinner, being humiliated while speaking in class. One moment. That's all it takes. Because your child brain doesn't ask, was this statistically dangerous? It asks, did this feel terrifying? If yes, it stores it, and stores it hard. That's how claustrophobia can begin. That's how social phobia can begin. That's how emetophobia, fear of vomiting, can begin after getting violently sick once at age 6. One event, one association, decades of fear. And the terrifying part, sometimes you consciously forget the event while your body remembers everything. Which means you may be reacting to a memory you can't access. Think about that. How many irrational fears might actually make perfect sense if you knew their origin? Part 4. Why phobias often make no logical sense. Ever wonder why someone can fear butterflies, buttons, holes, or balloons popping? It sounds absurd until you understand this. Phobias are rarely about the object itself. They're about what the object became linked to. A balloon may remind the nervous system of explosive sound. A small hole pattern may trigger disease disgust. A button may connect to a choking incident. The fear isn't random, it's symbolic. Your brain made meaning, even if you don't understand it. And once the fear loop begins, avoidance feeds it. You avoid the dog becomes scarier. You avoid elevators become deadly in your imagination. Avoidance doesn't reduce fear, it strengthens it every single time. And most people never realize their coping mechanism is maintaining the phobia. But what if your fear didn't come from a real event at all? What if it came from stories, movies, nightmares, or something you only imagined as a child? That happens too, you just don't realize it. And it's more common than you think.
Part 5. Imagination can create real phobias. Children don't separate imagination from reality the way adults do. Tell a child there's something in the basement, and that fear can become real. Show them a shark movie too young. Suddenly, oceans feel predatory. Let them hear ghost stories in the dark. They may fear being alone for years. Nothing happened, but the brain reacted as if something did. Because imagined threat can activate real fear. And childhood imagination is powerful enough to create lifelong phobias. Think about monsters under the bed. Most kids grow out of it. Some don't. It evolves into fear of darkness, fear of being alone, fear of sleep paralysis, fear of the unseen. Same root, different form. And this is why childhood matters so much. Because children don't just experience events, they build worlds around them. And sometimes those worlds become prisons. Part 6. Social phobias often begin with shame. Some fears aren't physical, they're social. Fear of rejection, judgment, speaking, being watched. And these often start with childhood humiliation, being laughed at while answering a question, being mocked for your voice, being bullied, being criticized every time you made mistakes. Your brain learned visibility equals pain, attention equals danger. So now public speaking feels like death, even though rationally it isn't. And here's what's fascinating. Studies show social rejection activates pain circuits similar to physical pain, which means your brain may treat embarrassment like injury. That's why social phobia feels so intense. It isn't weakness. Your nervous system may literally interpret judgment as threat. And if that threat began in childhood, it may feel automatic. But automatic doesn't mean permanent. Hold on to that, because that matters later. Part 7. Some phobias may start before memory. This part is unsettling. Researchers believe some fears may begin so early you have no conscious memory of their origin. Infancy, toddler years, pre-verbal life. Imagine falling into water at age 2. You don't remember it, but your nervous system might. Imagine being separated from a caregiver in a crowded place. You can't recall it, but abandonment panic lingers. Imagine repeated household chaos, yelling, unpredictability, fear. That can sensitize a child's nervous system, making them more vulnerable to anxiety and later phobias. Meaning, your current fear may be linked to something older than memory. And that's why people often say, "I've always been this way." Maybe, or maybe you've carried a forgotten imprint. There's a difference. Part 8. Why your brain keeps replaying the fear. Here's the trap. Once a phobia forms, the brain starts scanning for evidence it's right. This is threat bias. You notice every barking dog, every turbulence bump, every elevator malfunction story, every embarrassing social mistake, and ignore everything safe. Your mind becomes a fear detective, collecting proof, strengthening the phobia, making it feel justified. And over time, the original childhood trigger may matter less than the fear system it created, because now the machine runs itself. And that's why phobias can grow stronger with age, even when danger doesn't. But here's where everything changes, because if phobias are learned, what else can be learned? Maybe unlearning. Part 9. Phobias can be reversed. This is the part most people never hear. Your brain created the fear, which means your brain can change it. This is called extinction learning, exposure therapy, rewiring. But don't let the clinical words fool you. Here's what it means. Your brain must experience again and again that what it expects to happen doesn't happen. You approach the dog, nothing attacks. You take the elevator, nothing traps you. You speak in public, you survive. And slowly, new associations compete with old ones. Danger becomes safety. Panic becomes tolerance. Fear loses authority. This doesn't erase childhood, but it can loosen its grip. And that matters, because many people treat phobias as identity. I am a fearful person. No, you may be a conditioned person. Huge difference. One sounds permanent, one can change. Part 10. The phobia may not be the true fear. Now for the twist. Sometimes the object of fear isn't the true fear. Fear of flying may be fear of losing control. Fear of deep water may be fear of helplessness. Fear of spiders? Sometimes fear of unpredictable movement. Fear of public speaking? Often fear of humiliation. The phobia is sometimes the mask. The deeper wound is underneath. And childhood often shaped that deeper wound. Control, safety, trust, shame, abandonment. Which means healing the phobia may require understanding what the fear is really protecting. And that changes everything. Because now we're asking, why are you afraid of elevators? We're asking, what did being trapped mean to you? Different question, different answers, much deeper truth.
What if your phobia isn't just dysfunction, but information? A clue, a leftover alarm, a message from an earlier version of you that once needed protection. Because childhood fears often began as survival strategies. Avoid the dog, avoid ridicule, avoid enclosed spaces, avoid danger. The strategy made sense then, but maybe it no longer serves you now. And recognizing that can be the beginning of change.
because awareness weakens unconscious control, and hidden patterns lose power once seen. Maybe your fear isn't random. Maybe it has a story. Maybe it has a beginning. And maybe that means it can have an ending, too. So, where did your phobia begin? Was it a forgotten incident? A parent's fear? A childhood humiliation? A warning repeated so often it became part of you? Because what if your fear was never irrational, only misunderstood? And what if the thing controlling you today was built by a child trying to stay safe? That changes how you see fear, and maybe how you see yourself. Because phobias aren't always signs something is wrong with you. Sometimes they're signs something happened to you, even if you forgot. And if fear can be learned, it can be unlearned. But first, you have to recognize where it began, because some childhood memories disappear, but the fears they created sometimes never do, until you uncover them.